your business. But from the perspective of myself, and I'll only speak for myself here, someone who wears a lot of different titles. So I don't only do product, but brand strategy and marketing and communication. So I came to the product space from that area. And Rachel, how did you get into product?
Oh, that's a great question. So I started my career as a designer. And so kind of stumbled into UX design early in my product adventure and found that I'm really good at translating and I'm very focused on users and customers in ways that transition nicely to kind of that true product role. I've worked at companies like Nike, Starbucks, and Amazon. So I've had those real tactical product roles in the past. And just really love being a leader of people and guide and mentor. And so have become Chief Product Officer probably for the last 4.5, 5 years, led teams and businesses in product.
I love where you started that. There was a sense of, I was a designer and then frustration occurred and I had to, and I had to solve this. I come at that too the same way, where I was a copywriter that became a creative director and really got frustrated about how marketing was not affecting the product. We were just putting this lovely story together, but we weren't able to affect what we were selling. And I wanted to get in there and tried to find a way in. So I came at it through first some kind of product development, like systems that you would create when you're trying to offer some sort of a website or a digital microsite or a product that would exist with a campaign. And then it evolved into hackathons or like hackathon. And then it evolved into, I signed up for Startup School's Y Combinator Startup School, their MOOC, and took product development with them and started to try to poke at clients and say, hey, maybe based on what your brand is valuing here and how you're saying this, maybe we could make that truer in the company itself. You want to try that? And tried to just do that again and again until it kind of stuck. And I figured out the things to say that actually would allow product to evolve, which leads me to a little question here and kind of the first area of our topic, which is about clarifying product vision and strategy. What is it that you hang on to or say, I don't know, the writing on the wall of a culture of a company is what it is, but it's really hard for the company to often live up to the values that they say they do. Is that part of your tactic in terms of how you strategize in product development, or what is it that you do to keep clients on the straight and narrow when it comes to living up to building something that is true to who they are?
Absolutely. So one of the beautiful things about Fractional is I actually have the ability to influence more than I did as an employee, even a C-suite level or a senior level employee. I can say, for us to be successful, you listen to me, you understand my guidance, we have to live by those values that we talk about. And the strategy part of product is the why. Why are we doing this as a business? Why are we doing this as a product? And they ladder and stair step so beautifully together. Beyond that, it's the what and not the how that I focus on. So the delivery and the development of products, having been an engineer, I did that for years. But as you mentioned, my soul lights up when I get to tell the stories to the business, to our partners, to our team. The storytelling part of it to me is the best part of every day for me. And the strategic part of it is really like, how do we go to market? How do we take this thing out there and make something delightful for consumers or users? And so that's where I get to focus now, which is the best part because it's the most fun for me.
I want to dig in there, especially around the early stages,
Yes.
because where I'm coming from, when I was working in ad agencies, we're always at the end stage of everything. It's just like, just put the shiny thing on top of it. Not to say anything bad about marketing. It is so desperately needed. And it is the thing that connects the consumer with whatever comes before it. But that thing that I was trying to get into, why I got into product, is I wanted to get it in earlier there. And when you're at that very, very early stage, when you're just getting to the translation of what is it that we're truly trying to accomplish, how does that initially start getting translated into the first steps of product development when you're working on it?
Yeah, absolutely. So you can imagine kind of the funnel of a product. Somebody has a beautiful idea, it's shiny, they chase it, they're excited about it, they talk to people about it. There has to be something tactical you can see, touch, experience to be able to understand. Most of the time, founders and even small business and large business owners have vision statements they make that are very lofty and not achievable. You can't actually deliver something that does that until you deliver the something and it actually does that. So it's testing things. I am a huge Figma fan and I like to build clickable prototypes, even if it's just a couple screens or a couple examples of something that somebody could interact with. And I am a huge believer in the Starbucks methodology of user testing. If somebody tells me, I think this idea is great, I take something, I take paper and pen, and I sit at a desk at Starbucks at a table, and people come walk by and go, what are you doing? And I say, sit down, let me buy you a coffee. I want to talk to you more. And I get better insights from non-interested parties by putting something out there and saying, what does that look like to you? How does that feel to you? So that is the piece of the storytelling that I think is awesome. I then can go back to a founder or a business owner and say, you have a great idea. We've validated the idea is great. Now the 7,000 different paths we could take, we have to decide on one or two to try.
You just said a big word that is just so key to everything that we do and try to pass on into the company when they do things is validation. It doesn't matter what we come up with. In the end, this is for a market. So as we dig in a little bit to what we do as part of FOAF, which is being a fractional, somebody that's coming in from the outside, we're only there temporarily. We're supposed to just be a part of the culture from day one, understand everything, be as much in as we can. But of course, we're not. What are your strategies for leveraging your experience of doing this so many times as a fractional head of product to navigate the common challenges in specifically product scaling? Because we've talked about the beginning of it, but how is that for you? How do you work on that?
I think the best analogy is to think about it as a drop of water into the ocean. Boiling the ocean is a term in business all the time, but what I try to do is the opposite of that, is I want to build something that can make ripples that will last forever. And to do that, I have to have a perspective of what we're trying to solve for the business. They want to make money. They want to have something that's valuable that they put out into the world. For the customer, the second part of my flywheel analogy I'm going to get to, the customer who's going to pay for it, and then the user who's going to use it. Because oftentimes the user and the customer are not the same in the technology world that I live mostly in. And the validation happens when you build something that has ripples. If you use Nike and the Just Do It tagline, that has ripples that will last forever. So you want to build something small that gets that momentum and that causes those ripples to continue to grow and go. And you do that by making something teeny that you can get that feedback and the information from people on, and then build on it. My products are like Legos. I build castles out of Legos. That's what I tell people. And I tell the story of the castle being built because I start with the moat. How am I going to build something that people actually want to jump over water to get to?
So I'm going to jump back on the word validation again here, because even if you're a startup, you have some things validated. And you made a very interesting point here about grabbing onto what already is working and reflecting who you are, how you are, what you offer, and aligning those things as you're developing a product that can ride those ripples. So for me, where I come into that, or how I work with a company, is that I let the brand speak for itself. I have to work very hard on a strategy level to give the brand an empowerment to have its own voice, to then tell you not only, hey, this is what we believe internally, like let that voice sit in the back of your head. The same way that when you're running with scissors, you can hear your mom in the back of your head going, whoa, whoa. We're always running with scissors when we're developing. What's that voice in the back of your head and what is it telling you? But the brand also can do the job of being the voice of the consumer all the time, of saying, this is who we are in context to the market, so that we're always developing with that in mind. And there's a balance there to be sure. As we kind of lead into the next part of this conversation, which is about leveraging expertise, what I want to ask here is how you balance the different voices when it comes to that development, because there's a lot of them.
So it goes right back to making sure that the story is clear and changes frequently. So Amazon has this great tool called the PRFAQ, where you're writing the frequently asked questions and your press release for the product you haven't even started developing yet. And so it's getting the vision out there and getting people to give you feedback on the vision before you spend an hour of developing something. And the approach, especially for startups, because they don't have a brand that's a Nike or that's a Wieden Kennedy or that's anybody else, because products aren't just physical products, they're services too. An agency is a product. And so as we look at the way that you have to kind of tell that story, you have to get buy-in from the people that are going to invest in it and help build it.
Mhm.
You have to feel like you have a story to tell. The startups I work with right now, they are out there, and every other week they change a logo or they change their strategy or they move things around to try to see where they can get stickiness, because
Mhm.
traction is so important for a startup. And so they're less focused sometimes on that strategy. And I make them do an exercise of either a walking skeleton, which anybody watching, if you don't know what that is, go Google it, because it's an amazing way to figure out how to make something really small that is impactful. And going through some of those exercises helps businesses to understand what their target is long term, and then how to come back and go, okay, so what's the first thing we have to do?
So when you're talking like even with the walking skeleton, there's a technology integration roadmap that you have to kind of
Mhm.
hold everybody to. And how does that influence the product design process?
Yes. So I'll go a little more into this walking skeleton because it's a really simple way to think
Exactly.
about it. Think about the backbone of a beast, and it's got a
Mhm.
head. And what you're trying to do is bring the beast to life with the least investment possible. So, what is the first piece of the spine right next to the head? And what parts have to be part of the leg for it to basically like it breathes now? And an example could be with a technical product, you're basically saying we need to have the infrastructure to be able to build this, but you also want to keep the UX and the design and the strategic and all the other people busy. So it's like, so what other parts could make that a better experience? Maybe it's the user interface is built for the team that's going to be using it, and some design goes into making it easy for people to use. So you use the resources at hand, but you build the teeniest, tiniest slice without that skeleton. And then you've got the backlog, which is all the other pieces that could go along the back. And then the next piece would be like, how do we delight a customer? We have to delight business, we have to delight partners, we have to delight customer. So we pick one of each and we make sure that they fit into kind of that first thing that breathes life into it.
So when that starts scaling, because in the beginning, look, minimum viable product, MVP,
Mhm.
we've all heard of it. We understand that that's probably best practice in terms of how we start building things out. But how you keep that MVP idea in your head so you can stay agile as you're building out and making as responsive as possible a design process, that development cycle staying responsive. How do you keep the discipline involved in people's heads? Because once things get imagined, because we have part of all the voices is we all have this idea of a future of, wow, this is going to be amazing when it's out there. And it's
Right.
really hard to discipline ourselves. How do you work best with clients when it comes to keeping our nose to the grindstone, our eyes right in front of us in terms of one step at a time, while of course keeping strategically ahead for what's to come?
Yeah. So the shiny things, the MVP is always what people want to play with. And I love to call it a
Mhm.
minimum lovable product, an MLP,
Mhm.
like something consumers and the team will love. I have this game that I play as a part of the walking skeleton activity. It's like, what is the thing that happens when now we have to go reassess this and figure out how to scale it? That is a
Mhm.
part of the initial conversation. Our kickoff meeting says, yeah, we're going to go scrappy and we're going to buy an old laptop and we're going to do things over here in the corner. But at what moment do we say, oh, here's the key? And typically it's we have customers using it, or we have PII in our data, or we have to take payments from somebody. So it's like, what are all those things that will be key moments where we have to look at what we've got and figure out how do we get it up to the next level?
So to kind of jump from that hyper focus point to the fact that as FOAFs, we are chief XOs, chief product officers. So we're coming in from a leadership perspective to fill a silo that a company just doesn't have that capability for yet. And of course, we're accessible. We make this something that we're only in for a short period of time, but with this high level experience. So when it comes to cross functional alignment, and you're talking
Yes.
about that onboarding time,
Yes.
how do you find it best to integrate with teams when you're starting off so that you can come in not only hitting the ground running for what you need to do, but make sure you're aligning with everybody's needs, who are, of course, looking right at you because who's this FOAF that just came in?
Yes. I'm really lucky because most of my contracts, most of the things that I do have a time box of maybe 6 months to start with, but with the intention that it could be ongoing. So my perfect world, I am fractional for 3 big juicy customers that have 3 very different needs. So I stay excited and have different things to think about. And then I can kind of fill in with some other things, some smaller FOAF work where somebody just needs a day with a Rachel or an hour with a Rachel to find out what's going on. And the thing about this that's beautiful in fractional and in FOAF is it gives us all that balance of being able to understand how to quickly be boots on the ground and add value. I meet with everybody on the team within my first 10 days, 5 days if I can. Even if I'm 4 hours a day for 3 days a week, I want to make sure that I hear from them what their challenges are, what their difficulties are, and also like what they enjoy so that we can elevate the enjoyment and reduce the friction. And as a leader, it's also really important to make sure that I'm meeting people where they are. I want to get to know them. I want to understand their life and like, what is work like life for you? Where do you live? How can I make sure that I'm, committing to being supportive of your time zone and everything else? That is a big key piece of the first week, as well as reading everything I can get my hands on. And so by reading everything I can get my hands on, I can see the work the team is doing and has delivered and start celebrating that too. Because in my perfect world, fractional is a celebration of the team and an elevation of the team.
I love that. We are here to empower, and we
Yep.
are there to do the thing that they can't do on their own so that they can then do it. And that's all we're there for. So I was just
Absolutely.
I saw the question that was there that shout out to Harrison, who is on the back end, the normal host of the FOAF office hours. Shout out Harrison.
Go Harrison. Yay, Harrison.
Thank you for helping us out here. So can you describe a situation where you, as a fractional head of product, facilitated cross-functional team alignment that led to significant product improvements? So I can go ahead and answer this one first.
Yes. Go, Jaime.
Right now, I'm working as a chief strategy officer for a company, but we don't have a CPO, and our CTO and me and our CEO are kind of wearing that hat right now. And so what I ended up having a situation for was we actually have a fellow FOAFer who came into the company as a CRO to kind of give us, this is the market you should be going for. And so I had to manufacture a CPO out of the 3 of us to say, look, here's a pivot we need to do. And it's going to be around recognizing that the product that we're going to market with is not the product that we've been shouting to the venture capitalists, because venture capitalists are looking at the shiny object that's off there because that's what their money's going to get them. But that's not what we want to sell to consumers. So for me, it was an awful lot about there's money on the table right here, right now, and starting the conversation on that and saying, here's an opportunity. Here's the insight we got from our FOAF CRO. He told us that we should be focusing on this market. Well, here's how we can do that right now with what we have. Let's seize this opportunity. So let's pivot. And of course, using my CSO hat there, defined the company under that space to be able to say, we're this, and we're the only ones that can do this. And that was a very satisfying moment because it really was all of a sudden you could see the lights click with the team members going, and there was renewed energy because we've been so focused on pretending to be a company that the venture capitalists want to see pretending to be what you're going to be versus the company we already are today. And that unlocking, which was just a perspective change, really is bringing up a whole new level of how we present ourselves to the world and how new clients can see us. What about you?
That's awesome. Not dissimilar. I think it's very much kind of the theme. I actually play many roles at companies. So sometimes I go in and there isn't a CRO or there isn't a CMO. And so I need to understand the basics of those things. Having been a strategic director for an agency before, I understand how to shift into and fill those gaps. And I think fractionals are uniquely qualified. I also know when to call in the people on the sideline and say, this needs somebody that's actually dedicated to it instead of, hey, I can get this done in a day or I can get it done in an hour. And I think the most exciting one that I can talk about of late is having a founder that is brilliant and has wonderful ideas, but gets kind of caught up in the, well, this is what people think I should do, or this is what people say. And I have to be that voice of reason to say, all those people that are your supporters are also going to push you directions that maybe aren't necessarily the best direction to go for your goals. Product should always start from the goals. What are we trying to accomplish? How are we trying to delight consumers is a big part of that. How are we trying to land sales with customers as well? But what is that person's goal? And oftentimes people ask for things that they think are going to get them there, and they're not. So product leadership is truly helping people and translating for people what success looks like and can look like without it being the shiny thing that they think is the thing that's going to get them there. Because oftentimes it's not.
It's so true, because we just live in a world of assumptions that we then try to prove out, and we're just sleuthing that. So I'm noticing a new topic here. How critical is domain expertise for a fractional head of product when working with startups on launching new products? I'll let you go first on that one.
I love this. I believe that being a generalist is the strongest thing you can be as a head of product, because I have worked in med tech, I've worked in gaming, I've worked in retail, I've worked in advertising. The diversity of where I've worked, and honestly, my every year or 2 year jumping jobs now makes me somebody who has to pick things up quickly. So I can learn the things I need to know about a new domain rather quickly. And then I become more of an expert over time as it all sinks in and I learn from those around me. But if you come in and you only know one domain or one vertical, and then you have to try to go a different direction, you may be going down the map that you've built in your head of the one. So I think that there is something very powerful about people who are extreme experts in their space, but they may not be seeing the forest for the trees because they're so used to, but this is the way it always is. And so as head of product, I have to come into businesses and say, that's great that you have that knowledge. We're going to try something different. You're going to get comfortable with it because we're going to eat a lot of pizza, but you're going to get comfortable with it because we have to try something new or we die. That's usually a good conversation to have with the team. We're trying to make sure we have a future and that the history of things slowing down does not continue. And are you on board? Are you ready? And if not, I just keep trying to get people coming that way. But having that generalist mentality can make you a really powerful fractional chief product officer.
Yeah, the perspective I put on that is, what's your domain expertise? It's the forest. The domain expertise is having that overall view, because you are a dot connector. You are the one who's supposed to come in with the new ideas, which is that really the yin and yang of, if you're really a domain expert in the traditional sense of whatever that thing is, my God, we can't do what you do. Of course. That's what you're there for, though. We're supposed to come in and offer something different. That's part of the definition of FOAF. If you want to go for freelance, what you're doing is you're expanding current capabilities. And if you want to go for a fractional or a full-time hire, you're getting that huge expertise, but you're investing in going in that specific direction. And the taste of a FOAF is that idea that you can then see, is that the right role that you need to fill right now? Because even if we come in and we bring whatever amazingness we happen to bring, we might not be right. So it brings up this interesting point of, FOAFers are, as two chief product officers, we're very different in what we offer. And FOAF has a library of that alphabet of C blank O's. So no matter what you start with, sometimes we come in as a team, sometimes we come in as one then the other, because it just depends on whatever that gap is you're trying to get over. And for me, I'm going to use an example that's nothing to do with mine, but I had posted about this on LinkedIn earlier, which was Netflix and them understanding about where their competition lied. Because for product, you have to think about your market, not just in terms of who you think your competition is, but who your consumers actually look at as your competition. Because well, they're not thinking about competition. Netflix's competition is not HBO, it's TikTok. And that was a big realization for everybody. Like when Reed Hastings said that for the first time, like our competition of streamers, everybody went, what? And wrote big thought piece articles about this, because it was a recognition. What am I actually against? So one of the things I like to talk about with my clients is, and this is like one of those first eye-opener things, so I repeat this a lot. I even said it on my own FOAF interview before. I tell the client, it's not what you sell, it's what the customer is actually buying. And the more you can look from that customer perspective, they're not buying your soap. They're not even buying a clean house. They're buying the confidence in hosting. So the more you can sell the confidence in hosting and not chemicals in a bottle, the more your product development and marketing will align with product market fit.
Absolutely. I can't tell you how many times I've talked to businesses and founders, especially, that have a great idea, but they haven't actually talked to customers to find out who is going to want it, why they want it. I always ask the why. I brought it up earlier. Asking the why do you like this? What does it do
Mhm.
for you? Is powerful data to use on how to continue building and how to think about the product in the future. And you said something that made a word come to mind: facilitators. You know, at the level
Yeah.
that we're at and the kind of work we do, there's a lot of facilitation in our work. It's we can plug the holes, we can help you plug the holes, but also we can help you understand where there are holes. And I think that's one thing that FOAF is trying to be very, very cognizant of, is that with a small slice of time with somebody like us, we can help you understand what you need longer term.
Exactly. And I want to dig in on that even a little further, which is what you brought up about the why. There are other whys here too, which are the why of your company, which is
Mhm.
expressed in the brand, and the why of your consumer. So when you have a purpose-driven brand, the reason it's a purpose-driven brand is because your why and your consumer's why are actually bigger than either of your two whys. You're both going towards the same thing. I may not have a product that answers that larger purpose why. Like if I'm Patagonia, I'm not solving climate change, but I'm working towards it. And my customers are buying Patagonia because they need a good product, but they're also working towards climate change outside of what Patagonia offers. But we're aligning our whys. And so understanding what that why is also a big part of product development, which is why Patagonia did a great job of going around, driving around with a van, repairing people's clothing. That was
Right.
just a perfect product-led marketing plan. So the next question I see here, how do you balance the need for agility with the need for thorough market and product analysis in a high growth organization? So leaving the early startups behind, somebody's already got product market fit, and now they're screaming, oh crap, how do we catch up with the demand that we've got? And how do you
Yes.
keep that discipline in your head for scaling?
Yeah. So as a data geek, I always am looking at both parts. I want to understand what people say about something, but also what the data tells me. I was back in my days at Amazon, I was constantly being called over to be like, okay, so how do we do a query so we know the data's right? I'm like, directionally accurate. That's what everybody at Amazon talks about with the data. There are too many databases. There's too much potential that it might not be good enough. But good enough has to be good enough. So the
Mm.
need for agility is made faster by being able to be okay with, I'm going to go take a stab at it, take a look at some data. I'm going to use my gut, what customers are telling me and what the data tells me, and be like, okay, this is what we're going to try. If we fail, we want to fail fast, because failing fast helps you be agile. It also helps you shift without spending a ton of time building something, putting it out there and having everybody go, why? I don't want this thing you just built, which has happened to my companies before.
So when a founder or the team that's deciding to hire a FOAF is either in the early startup phase or in this scaling phase, what are the things that they should be asking of a potential fractional that they need to be thinking about when they're hiring that person? What are the skill sets? What are the problems they need to be making sure they're translating?
Yeah. Number one, culture add. I don't like the term culture fit because I think it feels like we're just trying to build more of ourselves. The
Mm.
person that you hire as a fractional has to be a culture add. They have to be able to meld well, but also bring a little extra. Because if we're not there to bring extra, then we're not there to bring the value that we really can. So finding somebody that can fit well with the team, but also help elevate them and think differently, and very quickly get them to start thinking outside of the box that they've lived in their expertise in the area they're in. The other part of it is truly um, being able to be honest and transparent about the things you know, but especially the things you don't. Where are the
Mm.
places you're worried about, but you don't understand what's going on there? My best onboarding experiences, I don't like that term onboarding, my best kind of embedding experiences have been really around people that tell me the truth. Like, I'm worried about something and I don't know what's wrong, because that's where product leaders and leaders that are fractional can really come in and help. We're going to be on the lookout for things. When you warn us that there's something and you don't know what it is, it's actually really valuable. So, to be honest with that first conversation and the first few conversations, and to give as much access as possible. I've been brought in before and told, go talk to this person, go do this thing. And I've said, thanks, I'm not interested. Because if you tell me I have to go work in this box, I'm not going to know what's going on outside of that, so that I can say to you, here's the big picture. And now we want to solve the big picture, and we start over there, because obviously that is the place to start. But if that's not the place to start, then I'm going to fail. And I don't like to fail. I like to help businesses and leaders succeed along with my own success. And so I want to be able to have that view, like, show me the whole map. Yeah, there's an edge where you could fall off the end of the earth because it's flat, but show me the map so that I can help you decide, where do we focus first and how do we use my time in the most valuable way.
I definitely noticed a lot in the more towards the beginning of my career rather than now in this era, but you could always tell the difference between a good and a bad leader coming in, because how much did they jump in and start saying what to do, and how much did they sit back and you didn't even know they were there, and they just asked and they listened and they said a lot of I don't knows, and they tried to bring in that culture of I don't know is a great thing to say, and how you build emotional intelligence through your actions, through your patience, through slowing down your conversation. I'm somebody who talks really, really, really fast, but when it's somebody who comes along and just kind of level sets in terms of what's going on and is always asking that question, that does bleed into the culture. And that is something that I always look for wherever, I'm in a company and I'm hiring. So what's this next thing say? Considering the diverse needs of early and growth companies, how do you tailor your approach as a fractional head of product to ensure you're delivering value that aligns with their specific challenges and goals? That's very aligned with what you just said, but if you want to dig in further to that, to answer this question.
I think it's actually pretty easy. It's that you're listening, just exactly what you just said. I listen a lot. I listen to the tone of voice that people use. I listen to people saying or showing nervousness about something. People speak volumes without saying a word sometimes. The person who's sitting in a corner voraciously writing notes about everything I say is the first person I want to grab and say, tell me what you're writing. I'm so curious. I'd love to know what I said and what it sparked in you. Beyond that, you have to think about the fact that you have to make a really big impact quickly. We are not the least expensive people to hire. Hiring a product owner or a mid-level product manager is going to be at a very different price point than me. And so fractionally, I don't get to be there 100% of the time. And truthfully, sometimes I get sad about that. I have multiple companies that I'm very important with and to, but I don't get to be there for Friday birthday parties or for some of the other things that happen. So making sure that as you walk in, you're bringing that that appetite for understanding. You have to be humble. If you come in and you command and control, it's all over from day one and people aren't going to talk to you. You have to be authentically nervous when you're nervous. I actually cried at a meeting once on my first day as a fractional because I was so upset about something that somebody had said was hard for them. And that was it. At that moment, that team was like, she's real and she's here and she's showing up for us. And it built trust. And it wasn't a show. I was truly emotional about what somebody had said and how hard it had been for so long. And we changed things exponentially.
Big word you used there was curiosity, because it leads to trust. And that word I think is really important, because trust is something that is very, very slow to build and very, very quick to break. And we're supposed to come in and like that, hit the ground running. So we're also pretty good at building up trust faster than other people, because we culturally know how to just break down when we need to break down, say the shit that needs to get said, be intimate in the way we need to be intimate to figure out what is going to get people to openly communicate. Because if you have psychological safety, then you move at shouting out to a book, you move at the speed of trust. The speed of trust is so fast. And it's amazing how much slower companies move because of a lack of communication or misunderstanding of what's being said, because the trust isn't there, because personal goals are not aligned. So we're not talking about this. And of course, I'm putting on my hat of co-founder of the Team Flow Institute here with those parameters. It's just all scientifically proven that all this stuff actually just speeds up work and gets us to the problem to address.
It does.
So go ahead, please.
No, it really does. Something that you said was really intriguing. So I am very appreciative of everything that people share with me. and everything that people show me and everything that people tell me. And I think that that trust and that we have to come in and be vulnerable to build trust. And it is hard as a human who grew up in tech as a woman to come in and immediately be like, I'm vulnerable, everybody shoot me, have fun, but I have to. So I have to let my ego stop at the door, and I have to not come in and go, I'm the smartest person in the room, which I used to do when I was younger. And I have to come back and say, when I stumble and I fall, I want you to understand that stumbling and falling is safe. It's okay. You're going to be safe here. And so I think that appreciation of that, when people are authentic and they tell you the truth, you need to really, like, that is a gem, and you need to celebrate it. And that helps with that, breaking down those barriers and building that trust. Is we're going to celebrate the good, and together we're going to solve the stuff.
Love that.
Thank
Jumping into this question right here, reflecting on our experiences, what is the one piece of advice you would give to startups considering bringing on a fractional head to help steer the product development? And from my perspective, I think that just saying the word iteration in and of itself doesn't sound like much, for the one thing to say, but the full art and perspective and process of iteration, which requires all of that listening internally and externally, moving only at one step at a time before proving it out and then moving on, but doing it so fast because you are moving at the speed of trust with everybody involved in that. That is iteration. And that is what I want to make sure gets across to everybody, because that I want a little bit of head of product in everybody in that way. What about you?
I loved my days of writing code. My dad was an engineer, so I was a code geek as a kid. I was code monkey. I love doing QA. I love finding things, I love breaking things. And so I like to inject that intention of, we're going to build something today that we can actually show somebody today. Terrifying for a lot of people who have never experienced that, but it's like, we're going to do it. It's 8 o'clock in the morning. At 4, we're going to do a demo for the CEO. You ready? And they'll be like, what? And I'm like, what are we going to demo? It could be a spreadsheet. I don't care if it's actually something that you can touch and click on that's technical, but like, let's build something that shows the value that we're trying to get toward, and is that first iterative step. And it's game changing when you think about your work that way. Let's go see if the person who's going to buy it wants to buy it today. We're going to start at 8. We're going to end at 4. It's like the best hackathon ever. And the teams become so comfortable with the idea of, but we want to show them something today. When you do it kind of in a repetitive manner, that it changes the way organizations work. And everybody should think that way. And for startups, as the question kind of touched on, bringing in a fractional leader to a startup, it's really about finding somebody who has that empathy for founders. Founders are unique, and founders are under tons of pressure. They typically are poor as dirt, and they don't have a couch to sleep on sometimes, and they have passion and ideas. And so as a head of product for founders, you have to be somebody who is going to guide them gently, but tell them the truth. And if they're not ready to hear the truth, you have to say, cool, I get it. But if you're not, if you're not able to absorb what I'm trying to share to help you, then maybe I'm not a good fit. And let me find you somebody who might be. And that's where having a network of people that is, great at the same capability, but with different personalities or different approaches. That's why fractional is so magical. You didn't just hire somebody that you now have to go fire. You basically brought somebody in to give it a try, you and them. And if we fit, it's magical, and it can go on for a very long time. And if it's not, we can help you find the next person, because we have a great network of people.
Before I dig into this next question, I want to dig into that a little bit further in terms of where that goes. Because as a fractional, or especially as a FOAF, you're probably coming in to open up a silo. You're probably coming in as the first of that, whatever that is. Granted, we do come in, I have come in before where there was somebody before me that was this, and now we've got to figure out what it becomes after. But either way, we're not permanent. So what is the ideal, which, oh my God, that's a statement, way you like to leave things when it comes to a company? How do you like to leave the product? How do you like to leave the team behind? What are you trying to set up for them? Because FOAFs are the beginning of something that leads to a long-term of that silo. So what is it for you?
Yeah. So, in wireframes, like when you got boxes,
Yeah.
I want to leave some boxes for people to explore. I don't necessarily want to say this is what done is going to look like, or this is what the end result is going to be. I'm always thinking about it from a what can we put in front of ourselves and in front of our customers that at least give us some of that feedback that I then could hand off to somebody else to pick up or to drop and go a different direction if that's what's best for them. I have a tendency not to do a ton of documentation, except when the documentation is like you need it or you're going to fail. And I used to be a technical writer as well. So I know how to put together good tech documents, but I want them to be small and light because I don't want them to be so rigorous that people feel like they have to follow that. Like this is the map and you must follow it is the opposite of what a fractional and especially a FOAF should do.
So to not belabor this lovely question sitting here, what does product mean to each of you, and how does that definition inform your approach as a fractional head of product? I did cheating here. I saw that question ahead of time. So I had this quote in my head and I couldn't remember what it was. So I had to go look it up, but this is what I believe. And this is Lisa Gansky who said this. Her quote was just that brand, because I come from the brand perspective, brand is story and product is souvenir. Because I look at everything from when you're buying a product, I'm not, unless it's scissors that just cut things, I'm buying something with a value bigger than the product. I'm buying into a world, I'm buying into a belief. So when I buy something, I'm buying into that world and that belief and aligning myself with it. So when I hear the voice that I like, I buy the souvenir of being in that world. And of course, there's a benefit directly to whatever that product is, but it's proof of this is the way I want to do whatever that benefit is. So for me, product is a souvenir. What about you?
For me, product is the unknown. There are lots of products in the world that are sold and that are built and that are bought and that are done. For me, product is really those things that are outside those edges that have already been built or designed. Product is exploration. And so if you go after something with that explorer's mentality in mind, put on your backpack, grab your goggles so you can see the birds in the trees, you're going to find something new nobody has thought about. And so the product work that I do is always around, we have a thing, we need to accelerate its sales, but what if we actually thought about the thing differently? Because I want to be on that exploration.
I love that. That basically just means that a product is never a finished thing.
Ever.
Here's the iteration. So kind of going over the things that we covered today from our FOAF perspective, we have really gone on a journey of trying to share that we are people who come in and try to, with empathy and open trust building mindsets, make sure that everybody sees a broader perspective and that we bring in all the voices that matter before the building can begin, and that the alignment of all of those things, the why of the company, the why of the consumer, the why of the specific goal of whatever that product is, because any one product is not a company. How do we make sure that all aligns and then iterate? What stood out for you in terms of what we talked about today that you want to make sure that people really hear?
I think it's that in products in general, but especially as a leader in products, we have to be authentic and we have to be humble and we have to be truthful. We're not here to hide things behind the bushes or to tell everybody everything's going to be okay. We're here to put the things on the table so that then we can handle them and we can deal with them. And so the approach of product leadership at any company, super large or small or founder built right away, should always be, what can we figure out today? That one day comment that I made about let's get a demo out there in a single day, that should be the way that people think about product. And how can you do something that shows value at the end of the day every day? What a great thing to take with you. So that was a great part of our chat.
And I think that's something we can actually extrapolate to all FOAFers in general in terms of any CXO that you might need. Is we're always going to be bringing to the table what is it that we want to understand today? What is it that the company, as a company, can truly understand now because of our touch point with them? And just that opening of that perspective, that bringing of this clear leadership level. We've been around the block, so we know what we're talking about, but to bring that specifically to your needs today so that you can take the next best step forward, because that's always the question that every company has. I don't care who you are. When you're a leader, you're always wondering, what is the next best step I should be taking? And when that really is in question, let outside leadership help you get there, whether that's product or revenue or strategy or brand or communication or marketing or whatever it may be that's within the wonderful alphabet that is within FOAF. So on behalf of Rachel and myself, I want to thank everybody for joining us today for this FOAF office hours, and to join us again in the next week or two. I'm not sure when the next one will be, when we explore another C blanco to be determined, and you can understand more about the value of having a fraction of a fractional. Learn more at FOAF.com.